Good morning. I want everybody to go ahead and take your sword out and unsheath it. Was that strange? Of course it was strange. Who uses swords in speeches? Well, what if you were introducing a speaker who was giving a presentation about swords? And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Giving introductory speeches. Now, introductory speech is not only meant to set the stage for another presenter, but to also create the first connection between the audience and the speaker. The goal is to excite and intrigue the listener before the speaker says their very first word. Now, to give a great introductory speech, we have to prepare, get to know our presenter, find the best ways that we can catch our audience attention, cater your speech to your audience, and answer some important questions that's going to give initial information about the presenter.
So as you may have already figured out, we're here to walk you through the process of giving the best introduction speech possible. Now, if this is your first time in the spotlight, it can be a little nerve-wracking, but one of the key secrets to a great introduction speech is doing your research and being prepared before you walk up on stage. There's nothing worse in this moment than going to start your introduction and knowing absolutely nothing about the guest speaker. So that's why I'm here. I'm going to give you some small but important advice to help you figure out who you're introducing. First things first, you want to do your research on the person. Just like with anything else, the best step in preparation is doing a little research. It's great to conduct your own research, whether it's through the internet or from word of mouth. But in this case, your best bet and your most reliable source is probably going to be the guest speaker. Don't be afraid to ask them prior to the introduction so you can learn some interesting facts about them and so you can work out the important credentials straight from their mouths instead of through the grapevine. Once you have found out who you're introducing, take the time to figure out a way to hype them up, in a professional way, of course. Don't forget to realize that you're the first person the audience will hear from during this time, so it's important to catch the audience's attention and get them on the edge of their seats to where they are intrigued to hear what the speaker has to offer.
My previous team member just talked to you about research and preparation, and that flows perfectly into the topic of questions that you need to answer about your guest speaker. Now, it's important not to just research stuff about your guest speaker, but you also need to know your audience because you need the two to resonate together. Now, there's a few key questions that you need to answer, and those are going to be why this speaker, why to this audience, and finally, why this subject. So, if you know a little bit about your audience and what their interests are, and you know what your guest speaker is all about, then you can kind of mesh the two together and help them have interest in the guest speaker before they even ever come on stage. And that's what this is all about. When you're doing an introduction, you're supposed to help make an easier transition for your guest speaker. Now, you might want to use some visual aids. You don't have to read these, you just need to have them up in the background. Maybe something as simple as their age, their city and state that they're from. You might want to also include some hobbies that they're interested in. But finally, an interest in maybe their mission statement would be good, or something that just tells what they're about. You want to hook your audience in, and you want to help your guest speaker out.
Hi there, everyone. I'm going to be talking today about two topics that are involved with every introductory speech. Topic A, capturing your audience's attention, and topic B, catering to your audience. So, when capturing your audience's attention, I have 3 tips. Tip A, using a hook. Tip B, preview what's ahead. Tip C, don't be bland. So, when you're giving your audience a hook generally consists of something like a question, story, or quote that helps you to break the ice between you and your audience. It helps to build that personal connection throughout the speech. B, preview what's ahead. So always give a little bit of insight as to what the speech is about in your introduction so that your audience will have an idea as to what you're going to be talking about. Tip C, don't be bland. Remember, this is your introductory speech. You want it to be a great first impression because that's really what it is, a first impression. So, with that being said, don't use a monotone voice, speak loudly and clearly. So, Hopefully now that you've captured your audience's attention with those 3 tips, using those 3 tips, you're going to want to keep that attention. And this is where catering to your audience comes into play. So, I have 3 tips for catering to your audience. A. Know who you're going to be talking to. B. Use language that they'll understand. And C. Give examples that they can relate to. So, tip A. You want to know who you're talking to before you give that introductory speech. Maybe find ways to relate to them on a personal level and connect to them. So for instance, if it's a group of military members, maybe in a presentation or slideshow, you could involve their unit patch or insignia to maybe relate to them. Just an example. Tip B. Don't use vocabulary that goes above their head. So with a group of elementary schoolers, you wouldn't want to use vocabulary in your introductory speech that goes above their head. They won't even understand what you're talking about. Same thing goes for acronyms and things like that. Don't use those when giving an introductory speech. Tip C. Use examples that they can relate to. So this all ties together. If you know who you're going to be talking to, you can use examples that they can relate to. If you give examples that they can relate to, then you're going to have great effects. For instance, if it's a group of elementary schoolers, you can use a cartoon and some sort of way to use an example. This will help you to really get your points across and introduce yourself in the best way. So, now that you know how to capture your audience's attention and keep their attention, you're on the way to a great introductory speech. Thanks for listening.
After watching this video, you now know how to give an introductory speech. You just need to remember to do your research, cater to your audience, catch your audience's attention, and answer some questions about your guest speaker. It's now safe to sheathe your swords.